Hello, everyone. This is Stephen
And Joe.
with Broker Online Exchange. We are happy you are here. We are part of the training team that trains and transitions our brokers. Before we get started, close the comments section because we won't be utilizing it. Any questions you do have during the webinar, enter the questions in the questions section at the bottom of the webinar, and the box team on hand will answer your questions. Today, we are going to go through Energy 101. We will be discussing deregulation, the energy components, taking a look at some bill copies, units of measure, other factors to consider regarding the difference between commercial and residential, etc., who the industry participants are, why the customers need brokers, the steps necessary to close a deal, and the role that we play in allowing you to maximize your deal flow and potential income.
Let's jump in today by answering the question, what is deregulation? We'll also look at a few other additional questions such as what changed? What was it like before deregulation? And what is it like after deregulation?
What changed? Suppliers came into the picture. In the early to the mid 2000s, suppliers came into the picture of making markets deregulated to offer customers the opportunity to bring price competition into their market. Now customers are able to choose someone to supply their gas and electricity outside of the utility. Hence, third-party suppliers are now in the picture. So what was it like before deregulation? Before deregulation, everyone only had the option of receiving gas and electricity through the utility. The utility had control on what everyone pays. They didn't have anything else to compare pricing. They have competition. So they pretty much had a monopoly on their little zones that they operated in. So what is it like after deregulation? Well, after deregulation, suppliers were brought into the picture. Now customers are able to fish for prices that are more competitive and are able to have the opportunity to save money. This is your time now. So now that we have deregulation into the picture, this is about you. This is about you being able to help customers save money, and it's about your opportunity to maximize on helping people save money while maximizing your potential income as well. Not every state is deregulated. That's important to remember as well. Some states are only deregulated for gas, some are only deregulated for electricity, and then you have some that are deregulated for both. The customer can stay with the utility, or they can choose to go with a third-party supplier for their supply.
Now that we have a better understanding of what deregulation is and what it has done for the industry, we're now going to look at energy components. While we look at energy components, some of the things we'll be looking at are delivery charges, supply charges, taxes, charge calculation, and finally, meter read.
Delivery charges and supply charges. We'll kick off with that. Before we even jump right into that, let me break down three key components that are supply, transmission, and distribution. So with supply, the supply is the generation of the electricity that has been deregulated in your area. This means you have a choice about where to buy your electricity supply now. This is, whether it be through a third-party supplier. The transmission, this is the transportation of the electricity supply from its source, hence a power plant, to the receiving station of the utility. This is still regulated to ensure reliable delivery. So keep that in mind. Transmission is still a regulated component, but the supply is what has become deregulated. Distribution. This is the transportation of electricity from the receiving station to your business, and it is also still regulated. So when we look at our charges, our delivery charges and supply charges, it's important to remember that supply would go under supply charges, and your transmission and distribution are part of your delivery charges, which then leads us to our taxes. You got your traditional sales taxes that you're probably used to, and then I kind of wanted to specifically mention SUT and GRT. So SUT is an additional sales tax that is primarily, it's going to apply primarily with your New Jersey deals that you work. So SUT is for New Jersey, and then GRT, which is a gross receipts tax, is a tax on the total gross revenues of a company, and it is levied on the seller of the service consumers. Excuse me. So it's a tax primarily that is in Pennsylvania, and specifically for Zone J of the Con Edison utility in New York. So it's for Pennsylvania and New York deals, but keep in mind that if you're thinking about your New York deals, this only applies to Zone J under the Consolidated Edison Utility Company in New York. So discussing charge calculation, that's pretty much in reference to the calculation of what the order of what their charges are going to be on their bill. So that is going to be their supply charges and their delivery charges with the taxes. So supply plus delivery, which we will actually look at a couple bill copies here in just a moment, so that way you can see the breakdown of the charge calculation. But essentially, yes, it's going to be your supply charges plus your delivery charges, any taxes, and then that equaling your total. So right before we jump into that, your meter read, the meter read is the cycle that the electricity and gas usage is calculated. So for example, a specific business's meter read may start tomorrow. Let's say it starts on February 16th and it goes to March 15th. That could be a specific meter read cycle for a customer. Different customers, it could be different times of the different times during the month. But just to give you an example of one, it'll typically be 30, 31 day cycle, and that can start on a specific day during the month. So our next slide we're about to look at here is an example of a bill copy. You'll see we have the utility option, or not the utility option, excuse me, but basically just an overview of where a lot of the essential information on the bill will be. So your utility will be listed out here. You'll see there's an account number, and then you'll notice there's annual usage here. Before we even continue talking about this, I do want to mention and make sure that, as I'm sure many of you have come across, when you're working in the industry, the different formats for bill copies is so diverse depending on the supplier or the utility bill copy that you're looking at, that they're all different. There are many different formats. That being the case, the more deal flow you work, the more the more leads that you're corresponding with and building rapport with, you're going to become exposed to a lot more of these bill copies and become more and more comfortable. Some of them you'll see will have an annual usage bar graph, which is very, very beneficial for determining your annual usage. And sometimes they'll even have it drawn out in a way for you right here, where it's got the exact per month annual usage for the previous 12 months. Not every bill has it drawn out that way, and we'll kind of go over, we will go over what that will look like whenever you come across one of those. But before we continue on, let's continue looking here. We got our billing address as well as the demand. And the demand, we see here, commercial demand 0 to 100 kW. That is kW without the H, that's just kilowatts. And the demand is the amount of kilowatts that a customer is using in a given hour. But going back to our charge calculation that we were referencing, we were wanting to integrate that here into the bill copy we were looking at. You'll see the calculation of the charge and kind of the order that they show in here. So you'll see your electricity supply charges, as we mentioned, your delivery charges, and then the additional taxes, bringing up the customer's total. Let's look at another bill. So you'll see in this bill, a little bit of a different format. Got the utility, account number, a rate code, which will determine, it will differentiate between different types of customers. The billing address, annual usage here is also done in a bar graph, but still you'll see the consistent theme that they'll have their supply, delivery, and sales and tax charges. They just may be in a little bit of a different format. So you'll see your supply charges right here, your delivery charges followed, and then their sales tax, bringing up their total. Before we do move on, I do want to show you an example of a supplier bill that has just the primary supply charges. So on the following slide we have right here, you'll see that we have a Champion Energy example bill, and these are the supply charges on the supply end. Give you a minute to look at that before we proceed to the next slide.
Now that we've walked through some bills and you've gotten to see some of the energy components that are on these bills, there are a few more things that we should look at and cover. One of those being the units of measure for both gas and electricity. So we're going to cover units of measure for both gas and electricity, which is kWh, MWh, as well as CCF and MCF.
kWh and MWh, those stand for kilowatt hours and megawatt hours. This is your units that you'll use to measure electricity. Basically, the conversion for that will be, if you're dealing with kilowatt hours, for every 1,000 kilowatt hours, equals 1 megawatt hour. So 1 megawatt hour is equal to 1,000 kilowatt hours. Then you have your therms to decatherms, which a lot of times therms will be shown as CCF, and decatherm will be in MCF format. And it's important to really understand the ratios between these, because sometimes you may have a gas bill that will be in a decatherm format. In our portal, everything is entered in the therm format. So understanding the ratio is very critical here. So therms being CCFs, for every 10 therms is 1 decatherm. So so basically for every 1 MCF is 10 CCFs.
So now that we've covered some more energy components, there's still more to do and still things that we need to go over. There's still other factors that to be considered when pricing and generating contracts. We're going to go over some of those factors, and some of these factors can include commercial versus residential, annual usage, rate class, load factor, as well as enrollment windows.
Commercial versus residential. Commercial, these are going to be your customers that have a commercial meter. Commercial businesses like hospitals, gas stations, restaurants, for example. These are the ones that we want you to have your primary focus on and what you'll be utilizing to get pricing with us. The reason why I say that is because you can, for the amount of time you're investing, the return on investment, the return on the time you've invested is much more beneficial to you as a broker, and the potential income you can make when you focus on commercial. Residential, those are customers with a residential meter, and primarily residential customers are homes. To kind of give you a numbers example of the difference between residential and commercial, take a suburban home. It may have, say, 3 kilowatts of peak demand during a given hour with 930 kilowatt hours of monthly usage. Whereas, a hospital may have 25 kW of a peak demand in a given hour with around 6,000 kilowatt hours of monthly usage. So numerically, you can see the size differential and how on a sales basis, how commercial will benefit you in a much greater way. Annual usage, this is the amount of usage that a business uses in a year. EAU, that abbreviation stands for estimated annual usage, and that's for when a bill copy has only that month's usage, like I was referencing earlier, and the methods used to calculate annual usage. So when you have a bill that only has 1 month's usage with no annualized usage on there, really at this point you have to guesstimate. And when you guesstimate, if it's a business that seems to be pretty consistent throughout the year, many brokers will multiply it by 12. If it seems like there's maybe a little bit of fluctuation, some people may multiply it by 10 or 10.5 to account for variance. The rate class, this is based on the size of the customer. The rate class is used to determine the category the commercial business falls into. So for example, it could be GSM or GSL, which are general service medium, general service large, things of that nature. The load factor is a ratio of the amount of the quantity and the total amount. So you'll see that we actually have a math calculation here below. This is when you are calculating the load factor for electricity. So you'll see that for electricity, it is found by dividing the monthly usage. That's your numerator, and then for the denominator, you're going to multiply what the peak demand is times how many days are in the billing cycle, and then times how many hours are in a day. So for this example, the business had 100 kilowatts of 100 kilowatt for peak demand times our 30-day bill cycle times 24 hours. That gave them 72,000. You do the math between that, and it equals a 50% load factor. With suppliers, a high load factor is more favorable, and it equals higher energy efficiency. So that's very critical to keep in mind as well. Also, regarding gas, you have what's a heat load and a flat load, and the difference between those two is that with a heat load, that's primarily for customers that there's going to be a fluctuation. So maybe, for example, maybe something like a church where there's exceptionally different usage on the weekends as opposed to during the week, and also during the holiday season, during as compared to other times of the year. So that would be more of an example of something that would fall under a heat load for gas. Whereas a flat load, just like it sounds, it's pretty consistent, stays pretty flat throughout the duration of the year. Enrollment windows. Enrollment windows are date guidelines that are to be followed when contracting a customer. These can vary based on the utility. So for example, Consolidated Edison Company of New York Incorporated, that's Con Ed, who we referenced earlier, they have a guideline that a customer must be enrolled 15 days prior to the next meter read. And like I mentioned, that will vary based on the utility. But that being said, you know, this is an example for that one, and that'll be something that you'll come to learn the more utilities you try to contract deals with. So for one, it might be, you know, 12 days, or one may be, you know, longer than that.
So now that we've covered and looked at some of the factors of the industry, let's look at some of the industry participants. Here we will cover the customer, the broker, box, the supplier, and finally the utility.
The customer, they're the start. They need the energy. They're the ones who buy the energy, and they're the ones that need you. The reason why you are critical, as opposed to, I mean, the customer, they're only going to get one pricing option when they go directly to the supplier. They're going to get the price. They're going to get that supplier's product or their service. But as a broker, they can go to one person to see comparative rates and compare and see what's the best, most efficient way, while also seeing from you that you have market knowledge and that you are able to be able to not just save them, cut costs, but be able to express to them that you have access to resources for the industry. So leading to you, you're the one who solves their needs. You're the ones that help them find the need to cut costs, say, and they need to buy energy. So you're the one that supplies the prices for them, finding savings for your customers through Box. And that's where you have access to us. So where we come into play, Broker Online Exchange here. Broker Online Exchange, we have the supplier rates. We communicate with the supplier side and the broker side. So we're working and allowing you to have the resources for you to be able to show the customer that, you know, they're not working with an average broker. They're working with a broker who has access and has a lot of has the connections necessary to get them much pricing, while also being able to show them market trends through, you know, seeing the price varying from day to day. The supplier, they're the ones who buy the energy up front, and they're also the ones who supply the energy. And then you have your utility who sets up energy flow and sends the customer bills. This next slide here actually demonstrates, it's the electricity value chain. I wanted to show you kind of how this is demonstrated. You have your generation. So take, for instance, your power plant, step up transformer, transmission with your power lines, step down transformer, and then you see the order of the primary distribution to industrial customers, commercial customers, residential customers. And you'll see kind of in that in the order of the totem pole here, commercial comes before residential. So not only are they larger and have a lot more usage, but they come first in terms of getting that power. So another reason to want to focus on them.
As just mentioned, you, the broker, are a vital part to the industry. That leads us to our next question. Why do customers need a broker?
They need a broker to negotiate on the customer's behalves. The broker is the customer's voice to the supplier. They're the lifeblood of getting the deal flow. So let me just communicate that you're gonna come to us, and we are the ones that have the pricing and the supplier relationships that we'll be able to be that effective communication to you regarding the supplier. Now, what you can communicate to the customer is that you have access to those suppliers. And when you have, like I mentioned, you know, you have access to over 75 plus suppliers across all deregulated markets, that is going to make you a much more attractive broker to work with than an average broker that doesn't have all the resources that you do. Also, to shop the market, get best rates. The brokers have access to, you know, you have access to our portals and our back office support. You know, we're here to help you. You have access to all the pricing, the tools in order to generate proposals and contracts, expedited tools to help close deals in a consistent, steady deal, and actually a fast-paced deal flow. Also, you're able to review industry trends and potential risks. So like I mentioned, prices change daily, and not every customer knows that. So when they are working with you and you are using the tools that the tools we provide you with, that we've equipped you with, you have the supplier prices, you have a larger rate by the pricing proposal sheets, the saving cost analysis that you see on there. And from the rates changing from day to day, the customer sees while working with you that you have the market knowledge and the risks that come along with, hey, if we got to plan on when to get this signed, because prices do not stay the same. The price could drop, price could drop, price could go up. Just communicating those things, that's your role with them. Like I mentioned at the beginning, you're pretty much the lifeblood of getting the deal flow, as well as being the voice of the customer.
As a broker with Box, you have a lot of resources at your hands. That's why it's important to know some of the deal components and some of the things that we need to cover in order to close the deal. So we're going to go over deal components, and while we cover this, some of the topics we'll be discussing is the process for closing deals, commission calculation, matrix pricing, as well as custom pricing.
The process for closing deals. So this is where we get to work. This is where your first step really is. You got to find a customer. You got to get your lead. You got to find somebody who needs the energy, like we talked about. Somebody who is ready to, their contract's coming to an end, and you're ready that they need to get contracted for their next set. So really, your first step is you get their bill. Once you've got your leads and your customer, you got to get their bill copy. And it's important to notate here that with your bill copies, it's got to be recent. So within the last 3 months, it's got to have no forward balance. So make sure it's clean. It's also make sure that it's legible, and then also that it is complete. All pages are necessary. Some suppliers use these bills for usage estimates, credit purposes, as well as rate, class, and demand calculations. I do want to mention, if the rate code on the bill does not match a rate code in the portal, then please check with your business manager. So, however, you can still run a quote while leaving the rate code field in the portal blank. What this will do is it will bring in matrix pricing from suppliers whose matrix is not based on the rate codes. Also, I want to mention, be aware of the load factor as well. That's extremely critical. Some suppliers have limitations on load factors that will be accepted. Just giving you an example, we looked at that Champion bill earlier. Champion will not accept any deals outside of Texas that have a load factor less than 35%. So they need it to be a good load factor percentage that is higher than 35%. So once you've got your bill copy, you want to get your pricing from Box. You'll enter the criteria from the bill copy when you're getting quotes, and from there you'll see all the prices. Obviously, you'll add the margin through the tools that we have. Once you've gotten the margin and the margin added into your pricing, you'll want to save the supplier prices that you want to propose to the customer. This is where generating pricing proposals really comes into play. You can, it's really a tool you can utilize where you can demonstrate your value to the customer that, hey, I have this, I have connections to these suppliers. I have the resources in order to allow you a leg up on being partnered with another broker, because through us, you'll be able to see the vast array of different suppliers and where they stand in their pricing for your deal. Once you've done that, you'll have, the customer wants to, they need to contract. So the deal that's going to allow them to save money, they're going to go ahead and want to contract. That's the next step. So once you've got your pricing, you've presented to the customer, they want to contract. You can go through our portal as well to continue to do that. And might I just remind you, like we've been saying this whole time, this is an expedited process for you, that you are able to do this and be able to quickly be able to generate those proposals and contracts. So that way the customer, it's not left waiting, and it's something that can be done quickly. So that way, not only is your deal flow maximized, but the more deal flow you can do, the more money you can make. And so your income potential is maximized as well. So you'll continue on, you'll get the contract generated, and then once you get the contract generated, you'll want to get it signed, which we also have an expedited feature in DocuSign to do that as well. If If you don't want to do DocuSign, you can still get it hand signed or emailed signed, whichever the case may be. But once you get the contract signed, you'll get it in, submitted, and for approval. And from there, like I mentioned, keep that deal flow coming. Make more money for yourself. Which brings me to our commission calculation. So with the commission calculation, I actually I pretty much put the formula down here for you to give you an example. So it's going to be your annual usage times the broker margin you added times the term length times your split with box, and that will give you your earnings. Also important to remember that for adding margin on deals, mils is for electricity, cents is for gas. So for electricity, say you're like, let's just use a 1 to 10 ratio here. 1 mil to 10 mil. 1 mil is 1/10 of a cent, so it's 0.001. 10 mils is 1 cent, 0.01. So keep that in mind. Some people may try to add a 0.01 if they've been used to doing gas deals, and they'll notice that, hey, that's actually 10 mils. You're adding a lot more than you think you are. So keep in mind that that ratio is 0.001 for 1 mil up to 10 mils, which is 0.01. Now with cents for gas, that's just like it sounds, cents. So 1 cent being 0.01 all the way to 10 cents, 0.10. And when I'm giving you these examples regarding those numbers as well, I want to make sure you know that that's not a reflection of the caps by any means. There are some suppliers that will allow you to exceed that amount just for number representation. Want to explain the decimal place. It is also important to notate the supplier caps. Different suppliers do have supplier caps, just like I said. Some may be higher than 10. Some may have a split and be lower than 10. But regardless, when you're entering your margin into the portal, that's already factored in, and that will be represented when you're looking at your pricing when you add your margin. Matrix pricing. Matrix pricing is daily pricing that you will have access to from suppliers. And these prices will vary on multiple factors, such as the state, utility, rate class, annual usage, demand, load factor. And due to the previous factors I just listed, a bill copy is essential. It's essential for all deals. You'll want to make sure that you have a bill copy. These will be primarily for deals. Matrix pricing we're talking about here will be primarily for deals that are under a certain threshold. So for electric deals, if it is under 1 million kilowatt hours annually, and for gas deals, if it is under 50,000 therms annually. With custom pricing, this is going to be for your deals that are over that threshold, the deals that are over 1 million kilowatt hours and over 50,000 therms. Now, I do kind of want to explain to you a little bit of a difference between when that would come into play. So as you know, we just discussed when you would do one or the other, when it's below or above that threshold. But the process for them is completely different. The matrix price process, as you may have experienced in the portal with matrix pricing, based off the criteria you enter from the bill copy, you have access to immediate daily supplier pricing based off the criteria that you entered from said bill copy. But with custom pricing, it's not that quick because it's a larger deal and it's got to be, there's a lot of data analyzation that takes place on the supplier's end. And so it's important to notate that when custom pricing deals, it can take at least 3 to 5 business days to get pricing back. So it's a process in which you really need to plan it out a lot more. That being said, there's also more documents that are needed. With standard matrix, obviously, primarily it's going to be your bill copy as well as the signed contract. But with custom pricing, before we even get to the contract, we'll need bill copies, signed LOA, which is a letter of authorization, which allows you to pull you. It's the customer giving you permission to pull usage from the utility on their behalf. So if you have a HUD file that's capital HUD, that would be something that you would need to include as well. And then also a signed LOE, which is a letter of exclusivity. This is pivotal because the suppliers are putting a lot of their time and resources into pricing these larger custom deals. And that being said, they want to feel confident that there's a good chance that it's going to close. And they're going to feel a lot more confident, and they're going to be more favorable if for an LOE. So LOEs, LOAs, bill copies, those are essential. Those are what is needed to custom price.
So far, we've covered a variety of things, such as energy components, industry factors, and deal components. Now we just want to take some time to explain how Broker Online Exchange can bring all of those together to maximize deal flow and income for you. One way that we'll do that is by answering the question, what do we do? As well as giving an overview of the energy engine, our business managers, our back office support, pricing team, and finally, commissions team.
What do we do? Well, we are your source for being licensed, access to supplier pricing, great back office support. We're here to maximize your potential earnings, like Joe just said. So that being the case, a lot of people, there's a lot of factors that go into, trying to get licensed in different markets. Being partnered with us, you have that license. You're operating under our license in the deregulated markets. Access to supplier pricing, 75 plus suppliers across all deregulated markets. Great back office support. That's going to not just be, that's going to extend from your business managers. It's going to extend everywhere because we're here to help maximize and equip you to build great rapport and be able to maximize your deal flow. So the energy engine, we talked a little bit about that whenever we were going through the process for closing deals, but our portal is critical to your matrix deals, as well as initiating the custom pricing process deals as well. And it will expedite your time for closing those deals. Therefore, your amount of deals can increase. Your amount of deal flow will increase dramatically, especially with, if you have the consistent amount of leads coming through, you're going to be able to be generating the leads, getting the contracts, and then getting them signed. You're going to be able to maximize the amount of people you're able to reach. So that being said, matrix pricing, adding margin, we talked about that a little bit. Generating pricing sheets, which I can't stress that out enough. I mean, that's not a tool everyone uses, and it's not a required tool by any means, but it's definitely something that demonstrates value to your customer, that you are able, that you have access to not just one rate that's going to save them money, but that you want to show them contrasting rates, showing, hey, not only am I able to save you money, but I have market knowledge as well. And then aside from that, being able to refresh pricing quickly. So once you've generated the contract, being able to refresh pricing in an expedited, very quick way. So that being said, you have, once you've generated a contract, we have a process tailor-made for you that is able to show you how the margin is adjusted after a day's pricing is changed. So with the same price, showing you how the margin is shifted, or allowing you to generate a new contract if you want to change the price. Also, you have the ability to add subagents as well as subagent permission setting for the subagents. So, at this point, this is about you. You can build your own army here. You got your subagents that you can add. You can have the people under you. You can set specifically what their splits are. You can set, what you want to hide from them, if you want to hide commissions. And then from there, setting specific permissions. So you can basically customize your subagents and what they have access to and what permissions they have. And this is so that way, if there's a chain under you, like let's say you have a subagent that's a sales manager and under him you have lots of sales agents, well, you can create a subagent for your sales manager that would be somebody who has access and has the permissions of a lot of different things, where the actual sales agents under them are going to have limited permissions that sales agent or that sales manager subagent, would be able to manage. So that being said, that kind of leads us to us here at Box. You have your business manager, and they're here to help you with questions you have regarding deals that you work on. They are here to make sure that you are able to basically that you're equipped. You're able to go out there and do work. They're here to provide you pricing or contracts if you need them when you're on the go. Just to give you an example, I was helping a guy recently where he was on the road and he knows how to use the engine. He works the engine very much. But while he happened to be on the road and he was like, hey, I just remembered I'm going to meet with this customer. I need a pricing proposal. And could you by chance also have a contract generated for the most attractive price in there? And so I did that and I sent it to him, and ultimately we were able to close the deal. So keep in mind that we're here to make sure that you are not only equipped, but that we want to serve you as well and help you maximize your deal flow. Also, your business manager is your point of contact at Box. I call it, it's like your best friend at Box. They're the ones that you're going to be talking to consistently that's going to help you with your deals. And that brings me to our back office support. Our back office support is extremely critical. Business managers will provide much of the back office support alongside with our other teams behind the scenes, such as training, development, pricing, and commissions teams. With the back office support, there's obviously a lot of those things I mentioned, the relationship building with the tools we're equipping you with, being able to help you out, and also just different add-ons that are able to help that are going to help you out. So for instance, let's say you're closing deals with Box and you have deals that are coming up for renewal. We're going to send you renewal reminders as well when that deal's coming up for renewal. That kind of leads me to our pricing team. Our pricing team, they're the ones, they are your support that provide the matrix pricing and the engine. They also go on your behalf to the suppliers when you're custom pricing deals. So the information that you're entering that we are going to go with the supplier to get pricing for, they're the ones that are gathering and going to bat for you to show, hey, this is what the broker's looking for, and this is what they need to do to win the deal. Also, our pricing team provides pricing and they generate the contracts for the custom deals as well. So if there's anything you need on the back end or specifically with custom deals, when you have a customer that's ready for a contract, they're the ones behind getting everything ready to go from the supplier and serving you in that aspect. The commissions team, they're the ones that generate your reports of earnings and pay you. So that's a critical team in and of itself. So that all being said, we're here to serve you, and that is absolutely what we're here to do. We're here to maximize your potential earnings while maximizing your deal flow. Remember, maximizing deal flow equals maximized income potential, because the more you get in, the more you're going to get out. So at this time, we'll take a couple of minutes for, I just want to mention thank you for attending Box University's Energy 101 webinar. We will be conducting a series of webinars bi-weekly. So if you have any questions, then feel free to contact us. We hope to see you at the next one. And remember, like I mentioned at the beginning, this is your time. Deregulation is in full effect and it's growing. It is your time.